hadn't been back to Chicago in 3 years. Standing in front of St. Augustine Cathedral, watching the mourners file through the massive oak doors, I knew exactly how long it had been. 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days since the argument that had fractured my relationship with my twin sister. The cab driver had asked if I was okay when I gave him the address. I must have looked as empty as I felt. My reflection in his rearview mirror showed a stranger with blonde hair pulled back too tightly, blue eyes red-rimmed from crying on the flight from Prague. At 28, I just lost the only person who shared my face, my DNA, half my childhood memories. Natalie was dead. A car accident, they said. The words in the email from her neighbor felt so clinical, so detached. Your sister passed away in a single-vehicle collision on Lakeshore Drive. Funeral services Friday at 2 p.m. I should have been here sooner. Should have answered her calls 6 months ago. Should have forgiven her for falling in love with a man whose world I couldn't stomach. But pride is a poison that works slowly. And now I'd never get the chance to tell her I was sorry. The cathedral steps were crowded with people I didn't recognize. Expensive suits, designer dresses, the kind of polished crowd that didn't belong at the funeral of a woman who used to steal my clothes and eat cereal straight from the box. These weren't Natalie's people. At least not the Natalie I remembered. I pushed through the entrance, arriving late because my connecting flight had been delayed. The service had already started. A priest's voice echoed through the vaulted space, but I couldn't focus on his words. My eyes locked on the casket at the front, draped in white lilies. She was in there, my mirror image, forever still. Then I felt it, the weight of attention shifting like a physical force. Heads turned. One by one, the mourners twisted in their pews to stare at me. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A woman in the third row clutched her chest, her face draining of color. An older man stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the marble floor. They were looking at me like I was a ghost. Of course, they saw Natalie. We were identical twins. Same bone structure, same blue eyes, same wheat blonde hair. The only differences were invisible. She'd been fire where I was ice, impulsive where I was calculated. Our parents had trained us both, passed down their skills in observation, languages, survival, but Natalie had wanted freedom from that legacy. I'd embraced it. Natalie. Someone whispered her name like a prayer. I kept walking down the aisle, my heels clicking against the stone floor. Every eye followed me. I didn't belong here. That much was clear. But I needed to see her one last time. Needed to say goodbye to the girl who used to hold my hand during thunderstorms when we were 6. My gaze swept across the front rows, searching for anyone familiar. That's when I saw him. He sat in the first pew, shoulders rigid beneath a black suit that probably cost more than my rent for a year. Dark hair, perfectly styled, strong jaw, the kind of profile that belonged on Roman statues. Even from behind, he radiated power, authority, danger. Gabriel Donatelli had to be the man Natalie had chosen over me. He turned, and the world stopped. Devastation carved into every line of his face, transformed into something else. Shock, desperate hope, disbelief. Dark brown eyes, nearly black in the cathedral's dim light, went wide. His lips parted as if to speak, but no sound came. He rose from his seat, stumbling slightly, one hand reaching toward me. Natalie. His voice broke on her name, raw and desperate. How is this possible? The pain in his voice gutted me. He thought she was alive. He thought I was her, standing here when she should be in that casket. Everyone in the cathedral held their breath, waiting for the impossible. I stopped 3 feet away from him, close enough to see his hand trembling as it reached for me, close enough to see tears gathering in his eyes, close enough to watch hope and grief war across his features. I'm not Natalie, I said quietly, my voice steady despite the chaos. I'm her sister, her twin sister. The words hit him like a physical blow. His reaching hand froze in midair, then slowly lowered. The desperate hope in his eyes died, replaced by crushing realization, then confusion, then something harder. Sister, he said the word like he was testing it, trying to make sense of reality. Twin sister. Identical, I confirmed, watching him process this. My name is Lauren Cooper. Natalie never mentioned me. Something flickered across his face. Pain, betrayal. She said her parents were dead. No siblings, no family. His jaw clenched. She never mentioned you. Around us, whispers exploded. The crowd had gone from watching a miracle to watching a revelation. I could feel their eyes boring into me, could hear fragments of conversation in multiple languages. My training kicked in automatically, cataloging reactions, measuring threats. We had a falling out, I said, forcing myself not to back away from his intensity. 3 years ago, when she told me about you. His dark eyes searched mine, looking for Natalie in my features and finding someone else entirely. You're real. You're not. He stopped himself, closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them again, the devastated man had been replaced by something colder, more controlled. We need to talk. After. I came for my sister's funeral, I repeated. Not after. And it wasn't a request. He pulled a card from his jacket pocket and pressed it into my hand. 1 hour. The address is on there. Come alone or don't come at all. He turned back to the service before I could respond, sitting down with rigid control. But I'd seen his hands. They were shaking. I forced myself to look away, to focus on the casket, made it to the 3rd row before my legs threatened to give out, slid into an empty space beside an elderly woman who crossed herself and muttered something in Italian. The priest continued speaking, but I caught fragments of whispered conversations around me. Phrases in English, Italian, languages I recognized from my work as a translator. Does he know about the twin? How did she hide this? Look at his face. He's destroyed all over again. I studied the mourners while pretending to listen to the eulogy. There were too many of them. First of all, Natalie had been a free spirit, a photographer who traveled light and kept few friends. Yet the cathedral was packed. Second, the security. I counted at least 6 men positioned at intervals along the walls, their jackets cut to conceal weapons. They weren't looking at the priest. They were scanning the crowd, watching exits, communicating with subtle hand signals. This wasn't a normal funeral. This was a fortress. My eyes drifted to a conversation happening in hushed tones. A man in the 5th row was speaking rapid Italian to his companion, and I caught the words accident and Albanese and too convenient. Albanian, that sent ice through my veins. The Balkan mafias were notoriously brutal. If they were involved in Natalie's death, then this wasn't an accident at all. I leaned forward, straining to hear more. The man continued, mentioning Lakeshore Drive, brake lines, and something about a message. My translator's brain assembled the pieces automatically. They were discussing sabotage, murder. Someone had killed my sister. The service ended in a blur. People filed out to the reception hall attached to the cathedral. I stayed rooted in my seat, staring at the casket as workers prepared to move it. My hands trembled in my lap. I'd suspected something was wrong from the moment I read that email. Natalie was an excellent driver, paranoid about maintenance after our father had drilled vehicle safety into us as kids. A single vehicle collision on a straight stretch of road. It didn't add up. Miss Cooper. I turned to find an older man with silver hair standing in the aisle. His movements were careful, respectful, but his eyes held warning. I'm Franco Raldi. I handle security for the Donatelli family. The Mafia family? You mean? Mr. Donatelli would like to speak with you privately, away from here. His tone was gentle but firm. Please, for your own safety. My safety? You look exactly like a woman who was murdered 3 days ago. There are people in this church who might not immediately understand you're not her. People who might see you as a threat or an opportunity or, he paused, please come with me. Mr. Donatelli is waiting. I looked back at Natalie's casket one last time, then at the card Gabriel had given me. Just an address. No name, no business. The kind of place that didn't advertise. I'll follow you in my own car, I said. I'm not getting into a vehicle with people I don't know. Franco's mouth twitched in what might have been approval. Smart. The address is the reception venue. Many people will be there. You won't be alone with him. I stood, grabbed my purse, and followed Franco toward a side exit. As we passed through the doorway, I glanced back one more time. Gabriel stood by the casket, one hand resting on the white wood, his head bowed. Even from a distance, I could see his shoulders shaking. He'd loved her, really loved her, and I'd just shattered whatever fragile hope my appearance had given him. I walked out into the cold Chicago air, following Franco to a waiting car. My sister deserved the truth about her death. And if that meant walking into the world that had killed her, then that's exactly what I'd do, even if it destroyed me in the process. The reception was held in a private room that screamed old money and older secrets. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured light across marble floors. Waitstaff moved between clusters of mourners, offering champagne and whispered condolences. I accepted a glass I had no intention of drinking and positioned myself near a window. Black cars lined the curb, expensive ones. Drivers stood at attention, hands folded, eyes alert. This wasn't just wealth on display. This was power. I stayed on the periphery, listening. People talked more freely when they thought you weren't paying attention. My father had taught me that, listen first, act later. You look just like her. A woman's voice, soft and sad. I turned to find someone around Natalie's age with kind eyes and a tissue clutched in her hand. I'm sorry. I'm Rachel. I worked with Natalie at the gallery downtown. Gallery? That was new. She never mentioned working at a gallery. She started about 8 months ago. Photography exhibits, mostly. Rachel's smile trembled. She talked about you once. Said she had a sister she missed. The words hit harder than they should have. She said that? Not in detail. Natalie was private, but I could tell it hurt her. Whatever happened between you two? Rachel glanced around nervously. She was scared the last few weeks. Jumpy. Kept checking her phone, looking over her shoulder. Did you tell the police? The police? Rachel's laugh held no humor. Gabriel Donatelli owns half this city. The police don't ask questions he doesn't want answered. Before I could respond, the room shifted. Conversations quieted. Heads turned. Gabriel had arrived, and he brought the temperature down with him. He moved through the crowd like a knife through water, people parting instinctively. Franco walked 2 steps behind. Gabriel's gaze found mine across the space, and he gave a subtle nod toward a door on the far side. I should go, Rachel said quickly. Be careful. Okay. She disappeared before I could thank her. I made my way to the indicated door, acutely aware of the attention I drew. Being Natalie's ghost was exhausting. The door led to a smaller room, intimate and windowless. Gabriel stood with his back to me, staring at a painting. Franco flanked the entrance like a sentry. Close the door, Gabriel said without turning around. I did. The sound of the lock clicking felt ominous. You wanted to talk, I said, refusing to show nervousness. So talk. He turned slowly, and the grief I'd seen in the cathedral had been replaced by something harder, more controlled. You said you believe Natalie was murdered. Why? Because she was an excellent driver who maintained her vehicle obsessively. Because single-car accidents on straight roads don't happen without cause. And because I heard your people talking about Albanians and sabotage during the service. Something flickered in his expression. Surprise. You speak Italian, among other languages. Translator. It's how I make a living. I crossed my arms. Your turn. Who are the Albanians and why did they want my sister dead? Gabriel moved to a sideboard and poured amber liquid into 2 glasses. He offered me one. I shook my head. The Kosovar organization, he said, taking a drink. They've been trying to move into Chicago territory for 2 years. Natalie became a target because she was close to me. You mean because she was your fiancée? Yes. He set down the glass with precise control. She knew the risks. I warned her what this life meant, and she stayed anyway. The bitterness in my voice surprised me. That sounds like Natalie, always running toward the fire. She was brave. She was reckless. I met his dark eyes. There's a difference. Gabriel studied me with unsettling intensity. You are nothing like her. Finally, something we agree on. When Natalie spoke, it was with passion, fire. Emotion ruled her decisions. He stepped closer and I refused to back away. You calculate. You observe. You weaponize silence. Is that an insult or a compliment? An observation. He was close enough now that I could smell his cologne. Something expensive and cedar dark. One that makes me wonder why she never mentioned having a twin, especially one trained to disappear. My blood went cold. What? You move like someone taught you to avoid detection. You position yourself near exits. You listen more than you speak. Those are not natural instincts, Miss Cooper. They're survival skills. His head tilted slightly. Who taught you? I should have lied. Should have deflected. Instead, something in his directness pulled the truth from me. Our parents before they died. And what were your parents? Careful. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. I could have you investigated, find out everything about you in 24 hours. Then why ask? Because I want to hear it from you. We stared at each other, locked in some unspoken battle of wills. Finally, I exhaled. They fled Russia in the 90s, started over here, taught us to protect ourselves, to leave no traces, to survive in a world that didn't forgive mistakes. Natalie rejected it. I embraced it. That's why she couldn't find you, Gabriel said. Understanding dawning. She tried. Hired investigators. They found nothing. Because I didn't want to be found. The admission tasted like ash. I was angry, stubborn, and instead, you lost her. The words gutted me. I turned away, blinking back tears I refused to let fall. Are you trying to hurt me? Or does it come naturally? I'm trying to understand. His voice softened marginally. Natalie never spoke of you, yet she kept a photograph. One picture hidden in her jewelry box. 2 blonde girls, maybe 6 years old, holding hands. I found it after she died. My breath caught. Halloween. Dressed as matching princesses. Our mother had taken it the week before everything changed. She kept that. My voice cracked despite my best efforts. She did. Gabriel moved to stand beside me, not touching, but present. Which tells me that whatever happened between you, she never stopped loving you. And that you didn't come here just for answers. Of course I did. She was my sister. Then help me find who killed her. I turned to face him. You already know who killed her. The Albanians. I know who gave the order. I don't know who executed it. Who tampered with her car. Who watched her die. His jaw clenched. And I need to know before I can act. Act? I repeated. You mean retaliate. I mean justice. Your version of justice likely involves body bags and unmarked graves. He didn't deny it. Does that bother you? It should have. Normal people were bothered by violence, by vengeance, by the kind of justice that happened in shadows. But I wasn't normal. I'd been raised by people who understood that some threats required permanent solutions. No, I admitted quietly. Doesn't. Gabriel's expression shifted. Something almost like respect crossing his features. Then work with me. Your skills, my resources. We find the truth together. And then what? I go back to my life and pretend this never happened? If you're smart, yes. I laughed, the sound harsh. I stopped being smart the moment I got on that plane to Chicago. Miss Cooper. Franco spoke from the doorway, his tone urgent. We have a situation. Gabriel's posture changed instantly, becoming something dangerous. What kind of situation? The kind that followed her here. My stomach dropped. What? Franco pulled out a phone, showed us security footage. Black sedan parked across from my hotel. 2 men visible inside, faces obscured. The timestamp showed them arriving 10 minutes after I checked in this morning. Albanian? Gabriel asked. Most likely. They've been stationary for hours. I processed this information with forced calm. They followed me from the airport. Or they've been monitoring the funeral, Gabriel countered, waiting to see if anyone unexpected showed up, his dark eyes fixed on me. Which you did. So what? They know Natalie had a twin. How is that a threat? Because you're asking questions. Because you look exactly like the woman they killed. He pulled out his phone, typed rapidly. You're not going back to that hotel. Excuse me, Franco. Take her to the house. North property. Full security detail. I am not going anywhere with you, I said firmly. I can handle myself against trained killers. With what? Sharp words and careful observation? His tone turned sharp. This is not negotiable, Miss Cooper. You involved yourself in this by coming here. Now you're a target. I can protect you, or I can have someone clean up your body when they're finished. Your choice. The brutal honesty should have terrified me. Instead, something in me responded to it, the part that Natalie had shared, the part that recognized danger and ran toward it anyway. Fine, I said. But we do this my way. I'm not a prisoner, and I'm not helpless. I help investigate, or you can explain to the police how you let your dead fiancé's twin sister get murdered under your watch. Gabriel's eyes narrowed. Are you threatening me? I'm negotiating. For a long moment we stood locked in silent combat. Then, impossibly, he smiled. A real smile, small and sharp. Natalie never threatened me. She would beg, cry, seduce. You hold a knife to my throat and dare me to bleed. Is that a yes? That's a we'll discuss terms in a secured location. He gestured to Franco. Take her. I'll handle things here and meet you in an hour. Franco moved toward me, respectful but firm. I grabbed my purse and followed him out a side exit, away from the reception, away from witnesses. As we walked toward a waiting car, I pulled out my phone and sent a quick message to my emergency contact, just in case. The last thing I saw before the car door closed was Gabriel watching from a window, his expression unreadable. I just agreed to enter the world that killed my sister. The world I'd spent my whole life learning to avoid. But Natalie deserved the truth, and I was going to get it, even if it destroyed me. Franco drove in silence, his eyes constantly checking the mirrors. 2 cars followed us, maintaining precise distance. Protection detail, I assumed. The cityscape blurred past until buildings gave way to trees. Then water. Lake Michigan stretched dark and infinite to our right, moonlight carving silver paths across its surface. How far is this place? I asked, breaking the quiet. 20 minutes north of the city. Secure location. Franco's tone was professional, almost gentle. Mr. Donatelli has several properties. This one is the safest. Safe from what exactly? The Albanians you all keep mentioning. His jaw tightened. From anyone who might want to hurt you because of who you look like. Because I looked like Natalie. Because some part of me was her, walking and breathing when she no longer could. The thought made my chest ache. We turned onto a private road, gates opening automatically. The property emerged from darkness like something out of a film. Modern architecture mixed with classic stonework, floor-to-ceiling windows glowing warm against the night, manicured lawns sloping down to a private dock. Money didn't just whisper here, it sang. Men in dark suits stood at strategic points. They nodded to Franco as we passed, their attention sharp and assessing when they saw me. I counted 8 visible guards, probably more I couldn't see. Franco opened my door, and I stepped out into cold air that smelled of water and pine. Your luggage will be retrieved from the hotel and brought here. For now, let me show you inside. The foyer took my breath away. Marble floors, a staircase that curved like art, paintings that belonged in museums. But it was the photographs that stopped me cold. Natalie everywhere. On the mantel, the side tables, an entire wall dedicated to her smile, her laughter, her life with Gabriel. My throat constricted. This was his grief on display, his love immortalized in frames. Mr. Donatelli keeps her memory close, Franco said quietly, noticing my reaction. He has not been the same since she died. They were together how long? 2 years. She changed him, made him want to be better. Franco's expression softened with genuine affection. She was light in a dark world. And I was the shadow of that light, the painful reminder of what he'd lost. Franco led me upstairs, down a hallway lined with more art. He opened a door to a guest room that was larger than my entire apartment in Prague. King bed, sitting area, balcony overlooking the lake. Everything was cream and silver, elegant and impersonal. You'll be comfortable here. Bathroom through that door. Clothes in the closet if you need them. He paused at the threshold. There are guards outside, but they're there for your protection, not to keep you prisoner. Mr. Donatelli will arrive soon. Until then, rest. You're safe here. The door closed with a soft click, leaving me alone with my thoughts and my sister's ghost. I explored the room with professional thoroughness. 2 exits, the door and the balcony. Windows locked but not alarmed. 3rd floor, too high to jump, but possible to climb down if necessary. Old habits from childhood training, assessing every space for escape routes. The closet held women's clothing. Natalie's, I realized, touching soft fabrics and jewel tones. Emerald, sapphire, ruby. She'd always loved bold colors. I preferred neutrals, grays, and blacks that helped me disappear. Even our wardrobes reflected who we'd become. Movement outside caught my eye. I moved to the window, careful to. They stayed partially hidden. A car glided to a stop and Gabriel stepped out, followed by a man I didn't recognize. They exchanged a few words. Gabriel's posture was tense, his demeanor authoritative. Then he glanced up, his eyes locking onto my window as if he knew I was watching. Our eyes met across the distance. Even from that far, I could feel the intensity of his gaze. He disappeared inside. Minutes later, a knock echoed on my door. "Come in," I called out, already knowing who it was. Gabriel entered, and the room seemed to shrink, overwhelmed by his presence. He'd taken off his suit jacket and loosened his tie. Exhaustion etched lines on his face, but beneath it, something harder remained. The grief-stricken fiancée from the funeral had vanished, replaced by someone else entirely, someone dangerous. "You settled in?" he asked, closing the door behind him. As much as one can be when kidnapped by a Mafia boss. His mouth quirked slightly. "Rescued. The word is rescued. Semantics." He walked to the window and looked out at the dark water. This was Natalie's favorite room. She'd spend hours on that balcony photographing the lake at different times of day. The information stung. "You brought me to her room. It's the safest one. Best sightlines, reinforced walls, direct access to security." He turned to face me. "Though I suppose that wasn't the only reason. What was the other reason?" "Maybe I wanted to see if you'd react the same way she did. If you'd stand at that window and see what she saw." His dark eyes searched mine. "But you don't. You cataloged exits, assessed threats, calculated risk. Even in grief, you're a survivor first. Is that criticism? It's admiration." He walked to a dresser, opened a drawer, and pulled out a leather journal. "I found this after the funeral, hidden with Natalie's things at the gallery. The police report on her accident is cursory at best, but this tells a different story." He handed me the journal. Natalie's handwriting covered the pages, familiar loops and curves that made my heart ache. I forced myself to focus on the words, dates, times, descriptions of men following her, license plates, notes about conversations she'd overheard. My sister had been investigating something, documenting it with the same thoroughness our father had taught us. "She was tracking the Albanians?" I said, flipping through pages, trying to identify who was giving orders, who was making moves without telling me. Gabriel's voice held a mix of pain and anger. "She knew I would have stopped her, protected her. Instead, she played detective and got herself killed. She was trying to help you. She was trying to prove something." He moved closer, looking over my shoulder at the journal. "Natalie always felt like she didn't belong in my world. Too soft, too innocent. She wanted to prove she could handle it. I found an entry dated 3 weeks before her death." His voice dropped, tinged with sadness and regret. The handwriting was shakier here. "Urgent. She mentions a name. Silvio says he's been acting strange, taking calls he doesn't want overheard." Gabriel's entire body tensed, became rigid. "Show me." I pointed to the passage. Natalie had written about seeing Silvio meeting with someone at a restaurant downtown. A man she described as Albanian based on his features and language. They'd exchanged an envelope. "Silvio Moretti," Gabriel said, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper. "My counselor. I've known him 15 years. Trusted him with everything." Natalie suspected he was working with the Albanians. Suspected, not confirmed. But I could see the gears turning in his mind, reassessing every interaction, every decision. If she's right, if Silvio betrayed me, then he didn't just pass information. He killed her. He gave them everything they needed to get to her. The fury in his voice was terrifying, yet oddly comforting. This was a man who would burn the world down for revenge. "We need proof," I said, forcing logic into the emotional storm. "Suspicion isn't enough. Proof can be extracted through torture. That won't hold up in any court." "Who said anything about courts?" Gabriel took the journal from my hands, his fingers brushing mine. The contact sent a jolt of electricity up my arm. "You need to understand something, Lauren. In my world, justice doesn't come from judges and juries. It comes from loyalty and consequences. If Silvio betrayed me, betrayed Natalie, he'll answer for it permanently." I should have been horrified, should have argued for law and order and civilized solutions. Instead, I thought about my sister, terrified and alone in those final moments. About someone tampering with her car, watching her drive away to her death. "Then let's get proof," I said quietly. "And when we do, you can handle it however you see fit." Gabriel studied me for a long moment, and something shifted in his expression. Understanding, maybe, or a recognition that we weren't so different. He and I, both raised in worlds where violence was currency and survival meant hard choices. A sharp sound shattered the moment, breaking glass, shouting from downstairs. Gabriel's gun was in his hand before I could process what was happening. "Stay here. Lock the door." "What's going on?" "Someone just breached the perimeter." He moved to the door, every line of his body coiled and ready for violence. "Franco." The door burst open and Franco appeared, weapon drawn, blood streaming from a cut on his temple. "Albanians. 3 vehicles. They rammed the gate." Gabriel's expression went cold. "How many?" "At least a dozen. Maybe more." Gunfire erupted from somewhere below. Glass shattered. Men shouted in multiple languages. My training kicked in, overriding panic. "Where's the safest location in the house?" "Panic room. Basement level," Franco said. "But we need to move now." Gabriel grabbed my hand, pulling me toward the door. His grip was firm, steady. "Stay behind me. Don't stop for anything." We ran. The hallway was chaos. Smoke filled the air, alarms shrieked, and somewhere below, men were dying. Gabriel kept my hand locked in his as we moved. Franco, leading with his weapon raised. 2 of Gabriel's guards appeared from a side corridor, taking defensive positions. "Cover the stairs," Gabriel ordered. "No one gets past this floor." We descended a back stairwell I hadn't noticed earlier. The sounds of fighting grew more distant, contained to the front of the house. Gabriel's security was holding the line, buying us time. The basement was surprisingly modern. Concrete reinforced with steel, emergency lighting casting everything in harsh white. Franco led us to what looked like a wine cellar, but when he pressed his palm to a panel, a section of wall slid open. The panic room was exactly what I expected. Reinforced walls, surveillance monitors showing multiple angles of the property, emergency supplies, weapons, a fortress within a fortress. "How long can we stay here?" I asked as Franco sealed the entrance behind us. "As long as necessary," Gabriel said, moving to the monitors. His jaw clenched as he watched his men engage the attackers. "Though I don't plan to hide while my people fight. Your people are trained for this. You're more valuable alive than dead in some pointless shootout." His dark eyes cut to me. "Pointless? Strategic," I corrected. "You said yourself this is about loyalty and consequences. Getting yourself killed before you can deliver those consequences would be pointless." Franco made a sound that might have been a suppressed laugh. "She has a point, boss." Gabriel's expression remained hard, but he turned back to the monitors. I watched over his shoulder as the battle unfolded in grainy black and white. The Albanians were professional, coordinated. They'd come prepared for Gabriel's security, which suggested inside information. "They knew the layout," I said quietly. "Knew where your guards would be positioned. Someone told them." "Silvio." Gabriel's voice was lethal. "He's not answering his phone. Neither is his second in command." Convenient timing. He turned to Franco, his voice laced with fury. "I want Silvio found now, and I want to know where he was tonight." Franco was already on his phone, speaking rapid Italian to someone on the other end. Meanwhile, the monitors showed Gabriel's men slowly gaining ground. The attackers were retreating, outnumbered and outgunned now that the element of surprise had faded. 10 minutes later, it was over. Bodies littered the front lawn, most of them Albanian. 3 of Gabriel's men were injured, 1 seriously, but they'd held the property. All clear, Franco reported, receiving confirmation through his earpiece. Perimeter secure. Ambulance en route for our wounded. Gabriel holstered his weapon. See to the bodies. Handle it. Police have been notified it was an attempted robbery. They won't ask questions. Of course, they wouldn't. This was just another night in a world where violence was currency and law enforcement looked the other way. We returned upstairs to find the house transformed. Bullet holes pocked the walls. Glass glittered across marble floors. Blood stained the foyer where someone had fallen. Men in dark suits moved with practiced efficiency, cleaning, documenting, erasing evidence. Your room is untouched, Franco said to me. But perhaps you'd prefer different accommodations tonight. She stays near me, Gabriel said before I could respond. The master suite. Double the guards on that floor. I should have argued, should have insisted on independence. But standing in the wreckage of an attack meant to kill me, I found myself nodding. Gabriel led me to the opposite wing, to a suite that was somehow both luxurious and masculine. Dark woods, leather, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake. A California king bed dominated the space. There's a sitting room through there, he said, gesturing to an adjoining door. Couch converts to a bed. You'll have privacy. Thank you. He moved to the windows, looking out at the water. Dawn was breaking, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. We'd survived the night, but at what cost? They'll come again, I said quietly. The Albanians. If Silvio told them about me, they'll keep trying until I'm dead. Then we eliminate the threat before they get another chance. He turned to face me, exhaustion lining his features. I should never have brought you here. Should have put you on the first plane back to Prague and forgotten you existed. But you didn't. No, I didn't. His gaze held mine, searching. Because you're the first person who understands, who knows what it's like to lose someone and want vengeance more than breath. Who doesn't flinch at the ugly truth of what I am. And what are you, Gabriel? A monster who loved an angel, who watched her die because I couldn't protect her, who sees her face every time I look at you and knows I'm failing her all over again. The pain in his voice broke something in me. I crossed the space between us, driven by an impulse I didn't understand. I'm not her. I'll never be her. But I'm here and I'm not going anywhere until we find who killed my sister. His hand came up, fingers tracing my jaw with devastating gentleness. You look so much like her. Same face, same eyes. But when you speak, when you move, you're completely different. It's like watching a familiar melody played in a different key. Gabriel, I know I shouldn't touch you, shouldn't feel what I'm feeling, but standing here knowing I almost lost you tonight. His thumb brushed across my lower lip, and heat flooded through me. Tell me to stop. I should have. Everything about this was wrong, complicated, a betrayal of my sister's memory. But Natalie was gone, and I was alive, and the man standing before me made me feel something I'd never experienced. I can't, I whispered. He kissed me, slow at first, questioning, then deeper when I responded, his hands sliding into my hair, pulling me closer. I tasted coffee and grief and something desperately alive. My hands fisted in his shirt, needing anchor, needing proof that we'd survived. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, reality crashed back in. That was a mistake, I said, even as my body screamed otherwise. Probably. He didn't let go. But I don't regret it. We barely know each other. I know you're brave. I know you're smart. I know you loved your sister enough to walk into danger for answers. His forehead rested against mine, and I know that when I thought those bullets might reach you, I was more terrified than I've been since Natalie died. I pulled back, needing space to think. This is grief trauma. Two people clinging to each other because we're both broken. Maybe. Or maybe it's two people finding something real in the middle of hell. He let me go, stepping back. Get some rest. We'll talk about Silvio when you wake up. Where are you going? To deal with the aftermath, to make sure my men are cared for, to start hunting the bastard who betrayed us. His expression hardened. And when I find him, I'm going to make sure he regrets every breath he took after selling out Natalie. He left before I could respond, leaving me alone in his suite, with the taste of him still on my lips and questions I couldn't answer. I wandered into the sitting room, found the couch. Through the windows, the lake stretched endless and serene, indifferent to the violence that had unfolded on its shores. Somewhere out there, Silvio was hiding. Somewhere out there, the Albanians were planning their next move. And somewhere in this complicated mess, I was falling for the man who'd loved my sister first. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through old messages from Natalie. Most were years old before our fight. Pictures of her smiling, voice memos of her laughter, evidence of a life lived fully. One message caught my attention, sent 6 months before she died. Asterisk, I met someone, lore. Someone incredible and terrifying and completely wrong for me. If you were here, you'd tell me to run. But I think I'm going to stay and see where this goes. I hope someday you'll forgive me enough to meet him. She'd been talking about Gabriel, about falling in love despite knowing the danger, about choosing to stay anyway. And now I was following her path, step by terrible step. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. Franco stood in the doorway, carrying a tray with coffee and pastries. Thought you might need this. It's been a long night. Thank you. I accepted the coffee gratefully. Franco, can I ask you something? Of course. Gabriel and Natalie. Were they happy? He considered the question carefully. They were complicated. She brought light to his darkness. But she was also frustrated by the limitations of his world. He loved her desperately but struggled to let her be independent. They fought about it often, about her investigating the Albanians, about everything. She wanted to prove herself capable of surviving his world. He wanted to keep her sheltered from it. Franco's expression softened. In the end, neither got what they wanted. But yes, beneath the complications, they were happy. And now I'm here, looking like her ghost, complicating everything. You're not complicating anything, Miss Cooper. You're giving him something I haven't seen since she died. Hope. Franco headed for the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I don't think you're a ghost. I think you're exactly who you are. And maybe that's what he needs instead of a memory. He left me with those words and a tray of food I couldn't eat. Outside, the sun climbed higher. I'd come to Chicago for answers about Natalie's death. Instead, I'd found myself tangled in the same dangerous web that had killed her. And worse, I was starting to understand why she'd stayed. I woke to the sound of raised voices. For a disoriented moment, I forgot where I was. Then reality crashed back. Gabriel's house. The attack. The kiss that shouldn't have happened. I checked my phone. 2 in the afternoon. I'd slept for hours. The voices were coming from downstairs. I recognized Gabriel's tone. Controlled fury, barely leashed. I moved to the door, cracked it open enough to hear. I don't care what excuse he gives. Gabriel's voice carried up the stairwell. Silvio knew about the attack. His phone records show calls to known Albanian operatives. Boss he's asking to meet. Says he can explain everything. That was Franco, measured and careful. It's a trap, probably, but he claims he has proof the Albanians are planning something bigger. Silence stretched. Then Gabriel spoke, his voice colder than I'd ever heard it. Set it up. Neutral location, full security. And Franco, whatever happens, Silvio doesn't walk away. I dressed quickly in clothes from the closet. Black jeans that fit surprisingly well, a charcoal sweater. Natalie's clothes. I realized we'd always been the same size. Gabriel was in his office when I found him, standing at the window with his back to the door. He didn't turn when I entered, but his shoulders tensed. You heard, he said, a statement, not a question. Hard not to. You weren't exactly quiet. I wasn't trying to be. He finally faced me, exhaustion carving lines around his eyes. Silvio wants to meet tonight. Claims he has information. And you think it's a trap. I know it's a trap. The question is whether the information is worth walking into it. He moved to his desk, pulled up security footage on his computer. We found him through his mistress. The screen showed a middle-aged man with silver hair and sharp features, handsome in a polished way, expensively dressed. He was pacing in what looked like a hotel room, phone pressed to his ear, gesturing wildly. That's Silvio, 30 years in this life. I've known him since I was 18. Gabriel's jaw clenched. And he sold out Natalie for what? Money, territory, cowardice. He looked at me, really looked, and something shifted in his expression. You're wearing her clothes. Everything else I own is still at the hotel. She wore this the night I met her. Gallery opening downtown. She took my picture without asking. Said I had interesting shadows. The intimacy of the memory hung between us. Gabriel, I know this is complicated. That I should keep my distance. That you're her sister and this is wrong. His hand moved to my face, cupping my cheek. But I can't seem to stay away from you. We kissed once in the aftermath of violence and grief. That doesn't mean it means everything. His thumb traced my cheekbone. Because I've been thinking about it all day. Because you're not her, Lauren. You're something entirely different. And that terrifies me. I should have pulled away. Instead, I leaned into his touch. What are you saying? I'm saying I want you to come with me tonight to the meeting with Silvio. I want your eyes on this, your instincts. You see things others miss. He paused. But more than that, I want you close because the thought of you out of my sight makes me reckless. You want me at a confrontation with the man who killed my sister. I want you helping me get justice for her. I considered this. Every rational part of me screamed that I should leave Chicago. But the part that had loved Natalie, that had inherited our parents' darkness, wanted to see Silvio's face when he realized his betrayal had consequences. Okay, I said. I'll come. Gabriel pulled a small handgun from his safe. Glock 43, 9mm. Easy to conceal. Franco will get you a holster. I took the weapon, checked the chamber, tested the weight. The movements came automatically, muscle memory from training sessions when I was 15. You handle that like you've done it before, Gabriel observed. I have, though I've never shot at a person. Hopefully, tonight won't be your first time. The hours until the meeting crawled by. Franco fitted me with an earpiece and a holster that sat comfortably at the small of my back. He walked me through the warehouse layout using blueprints, showing me exits, cover points, danger zones. You stay with Mr. Donatelli at all times, Franco instructed. Silvio is dangerous. He's cornered, desperate. Don't underestimate him. At 8:30 we left. 3 cars, 12 men, enough firepower to start a small war. I sat in the back with Gabriel, his hand finding mine in the darkness. Neither of us spoke. The warehouse loomed against the night sky, dark except for a single entrance lit by harsh spotlights. Silvio's people were already visible, 4 men positioned strategically. Everyone clear on the play. Gabriel spoke into his radio. Confirmations came back. Good. Let's end this. We exited the vehicles. The cold October air bit through my sweater. Gabriel's hand rested on the small of my back as we walked toward the entrance. Franco walked ahead, weapon visible. Inside, the warehouse was exactly what I expected. Concrete floors, rusted equipment, the smell of old oil and decay. Silvio stood in the center under a hanging work light, looking smaller than he had on the security footage, older, frightened beneath the expensive suit. Gabriel. His voice carried across the empty space. Thank you for coming. Give me one reason I shouldn't kill you right now. Gabriel's tone was conversational, which somehow made it more terrifying, because I can give you Victor Castrati, the Albanian boss. Location, schedule, vulnerabilities, everything you need to end this war before it destroys you. And why would you do that? You've been working for them. I've been surviving. They approached me a year ago, threatened my family. I gave them information to keep them safe. But they went too far. Silvio's eyes drifted to me, and genuine pain crossed his face. I never wanted Natalie dead. That wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. Gabriel's voice dropped to something lethal. Because you gave them everything they needed to get to her. They said they just wanted leverage. I swear, Gabriel, I didn't know they'd kill her. His voice broke. I've been trying to make it right ever since by waiting until they attacked my home. Until they nearly killed Lauren. Gabriel took a step forward. Your redemption comes too late. Wait, I spoke for the first time, and everyone's attention shifted to me. You said you're giving us Victor. What's the catch? Silvio's eyes met mine, and I saw calculation behind the fear. The catch is that I walk away. New identity, money, protection. I disappear and you get the man who actually ordered Natalie's death. No. Gabriel's response was immediate. Then we all die. Silvio pulled his hand from his pocket, and suddenly his men had weapons raised. Gabriel's people responded in kind, and the warehouse became a standoff. I activated a dead man switch when you arrived. If I don't check in every 15 minutes, information about your operation goes to the FBI. Every account, every contact, every dirty deal. The betrayal ran deeper than we'd known. Silvio hadn't just sold out Natalie. He'd been preparing to destroy everything. Gabriel's expression went cold. You're bluffing. Am I? Are you willing to bet your empire on it? Silvio's voice grew stronger. I'm offering you Victor on a silver platter, the man who killed your fiancée. Take the deal, Gabriel. Let me go, and I'll give you vengeance. The silence stretched tight as a wire. I could feel Gabriel's fury radiating beside me. He wanted Silvio dead, but he wanted Victor more. Show me proof, Gabriel said finally. Proof you actually have access to Victor. Silvio pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, then turned it toward us. A photo showed Victor Castrati entering a building, timestamp from earlier today. Another showed his schedule for the next week. Detailed and specific. I'd been his inside guy for a year. I knew everything. Silvio's smile was bitter as he said, Take it or leave it, Gabriel. Decide fast. My next check-in is in 8 minutes. Gabriel looked at me, and I saw the question swirling in his eyes. What was I going to do? Let Silvio walk away to get Victor, or demand justice right then and risk everything? I thought about Natalie, about how she tried so hard to prove herself in a world that ultimately swallowed her whole. And I thought about what she would truly want, not some petty revenge against a messenger. No, she'd want revenge against the cold-blooded man who'd given the order. Take the deal, I said quietly. Get Victor. Gabriel's jaw tightened, but he nodded once. Fine. Give us Victor and you walk. But Silvio, he stepped closer, his voice laced with menace. If you're lying, if this is some kind of setup, I will find you. I will find everyone you've ever loved. And what happens to them will make you wish you died here tonight. Silvio swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. I understand. Then talk, Gabriel barked. And make it count. What followed was a tense 30 minutes of information being spilled. Victor's location, a penthouse in downtown Chicago. His schedule, his security detail, his weaknesses. Silvio laid it all out with the cold precision of someone who'd been planning this revelation for months. Like a carefully orchestrated performance. When he finished, Gabriel pulled out his cell and made a quick call. Let him go. Full surveillance. If he contacts the Albanians, he let the threat hang in the air. Silvio and his men backed toward the exit. At the threshold, he paused and looked back at me. His eyes filled with something I couldn't quite decipher. For what it's worth, Miss Cooper, your sister was brave. Braver than I was. I'm sorry I couldn't protect her. Then he was gone, disappearing into the night with his freedom bought with blood, money, and betrayal. Gabriel turned to me, and the raw fury burning in his eyes was breathtaking. We're going after Victor tomorrow night. And when we find him, I'm going to make damn sure he knows exactly why he's dying. Good, I said simply. Because I want to be there when you do it. The day of the operation felt surreal, like something out of a movie. Gabriel's people moved through the house like shadows, silently assembling weapons, reviewing blueprints, communicating in coded language that sounded like a foreign tongue. I stayed glued to a chair in Gabriel's office, monitoring communications equipment, while Franco walked me through the plan for what felt like the 100th time. Victor's penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of a luxury building downtown. Heavy security, both electronic and human. "You'll stay with me in the command vehicle," Franco said for the 3rd time. "Monitor feeds. Coordinate extraction if needed. You're not going inside." "We'll see," I murmured, earning a sharp look from him. Gabriel appeared in the doorway, dressed in black tactical gear that somehow managed to make him look even more dangerous. His dark eyes found mine across the room. "Lauren, a word." He gestured towards the hallway. I followed him to an empty room, watched him close and lock the door. The air between us crackled with unspoken tension. "I need you to promise me something," he said, stepping close. "If things go wrong tonight, if I don't make it out." I pressed my fingers to his lips, stopping him mid-sentence. "Don't say it." "I have to." His hand covered mine, pulling it away, but he didn't let go. "If I don't make it, Franco has instructions. Money, protection, everything you need to disappear. Go back to Prague. Just survive, Lauren." "Gabriel, these past days with you, they've reminded me what it feels like to want something beyond revenge. To imagine a future that isn't just blood and darkness." His hand cupped my face, his thumb gently stroking my cheek. "Natalie loved me, but she never understood this life. You understand the darkness because you carry it, too. We barely know each other. It's not about that." His forehead rested against mine, his breath warm against my skin. "You're not her shadow, Lauren. You're your own light. Sharper, colder, more dangerous. And it terrifies me how much I want that." I kissed him hard and desperate, pouring every complicated feeling, every fear and hope, into that single kiss. He responded instantly, backing me against the wall, his hands tangling in my hair. The kiss deepened, became something consuming, a desperate plea for connection in the face of oblivion. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, reality settled back in, heavy and unavoidable. "Come back alive," I whispered, my voice raw. "That's all I ask. I intend to." He stepped back, the cold, calculating strategist returning, masking the vulnerability I'd glimpsed. "Victor dies tonight. For Natalie." 6 hours later, I sat in the command vehicle with Franco, watching feeds from cameras Gabriel's people had positioned around Victor's building. 15 men had gone in, Gabriel leading the assault team. The operation unfolded with brutal efficiency, like a well-rehearsed dance of death. First, the security systems were disabled, then the guards neutralized quietly, efficiently. Gabriel's team moved like ghosts, silently approaching their target floor. Gabriel's voice crackled through my earpiece, calm and professional. Then, gunfire erupted through the feed. Victor's personal security had been waiting, prepared for them. The screen showed pure chaos. Muzzle flashes in the darkness, men falling. "Gabriel, report." Franco barked, his voice tight with anxiety. Static. Then Gabriel's voice, strained, taking heavy fire. "Victor's in the wind, heading for his private elevator. Block it. Don't let him reach the garage." More gunfire. Then I saw it, a secondary feed showing the garage level. A black SUV pulling up, engine running, Victor's escape route. "Franco, look." I pointed, my voice rising in alarm. "He's going to get away." Franco cursed under his breath. "Boss, Victor's got a vehicle in the garage. You need to move now." "Copy." Pursuing. But I could see what Franco couldn't. Gabriel's team was pinned down, their progress stalled. By the time they fought their way through, Victor would be long gone. I made a split-second decision, one my father would have both respected and hated. "Franco, which exit leads to the garage?" "Service entrance, east side." "Why, Lauren?" "No." I was already moving, grabbing the spare earpiece and a weapon. "Someone needs to slow Victor down. You will get yourself killed. My father was a KGB operative. I know exactly what I'm capable of." I opened the door, the cold night air hitting my face. "Tell Gabriel I'm sorry." I ran before Franco could stop me, crossing towards the service entrance. Inside, harsh lighting and cold concrete walls. The smell of exhaust fumes and gun oil hung heavy in the air. Voices echoed from below, Albanians speaking rapidly. 3 men, maybe 4. The garage appeared around a corner. 2 SUVs, engines running. Victor stood beside one, his eyes cold and calculating in his expensive suit. 3 guards surrounded him, weapons ready. I had seconds to act. My father's voice echoed in my memory. Asterisk when outnumbered, create chaos. I fired twice into the air. The sound echoed like thunder through the concrete space, and everyone froze. Then chaos erupted. The guards spun towards me, weapons rising. I dove behind a concrete pillar as bullets chipped stone inches from my head. "FBI!" I shouted, gambling on a bluff. "Building is surrounded." A lie, but Victor didn't know that. Return fire kept me pinned down. 1 guard advanced, his face a mask of determination. I waited until he cleared the pillar, then fired. The bullet caught his shoulder, and he went down. I felt nothing, just cold calculation. Then, new gunfire erupted from the entrance. Gabriel and his team poured into the garage, and suddenly Victor's people were caught between 2 threats. The remaining guards went down under coordinated fire. Victor tried to run, but Gabriel was faster. He tackled the Albanian boss, and they went down hard, hitting the concrete with a sickening thud. I emerged from cover, watching Gabriel pound his fist into Victor's face. A primal expression of rage and grief channeled into raw violence. "Gabriel, stop." I moved closer, my voice sharp. "We need him conscious." He froze, fist raised, knuckles covered in blood. Slowly, Gabriel stood, dragging Victor up with him. "You killed her," Gabriel said, his voice shaking with barely contained fury. "Say it." Victor spat blood onto the concrete floor. "The Cooper woman? She was collateral, meant to hurt you. Her name was Natalie." Gabriel's gun pressed against Victor's temple. The cold steel a stark contrast to the man's terrified expression. "And she was worth 10 of you, Gabriel." I put my hand on his arm, trying to ground him. "Not like this. Make him answer for it properly. Turn him over to your contacts. Let him rot in prison where his own people can reach him." Gabriel's finger tightened on the trigger for a heartbeat. A moment where I genuinely thought he'd ignore me and pull the trigger. Then, slowly, he lowered the weapon. "Franco, take him." Gabriel shoved Victor towards his second in command. "Make the calls. Get him buried somewhere he'll never see daylight again." Franco moved quickly, securing Victor while calling in favors, setting the wheels in motion. Gabriel's team conducted cleanup, efficiently erasing all traces of their presence. Gabriel turned to me, and I saw it happen. The moment he processed what I'd done, the danger I'd put myself in. "You could have died." His voice was quiet, dangerously controlled. "You could have died, and it would have been my fault. I made a choice. Victor was escaping. Not you." The words exploded from him, raw and unfiltered. "I can't lose someone else. I can't watch someone else I care about bleed out because of this life. But I didn't. I'm fine." He pulled me against him, holding me tight, his body trembling. "Don't do that again. Don't make me choose between revenge and keeping you safe. Okay?" I whispered, my voice muffled against his chest. "I promise." We stood like that for a long moment, locked in a silent embrace while his team worked around us, cleaning up the mess we'd made. Eventually, Franco approached, his expression grim. "Boss, we need to move. Police will be here in 10 minutes. Gabriel released me slowly, his grip reluctant. "Lauren rides with me." The drive back to the lake house was silent, heavy with unspoken emotions. Gabriel's hand found mine in the darkness, his fingers trembling, not from fear, but from the adrenaline, from the aftermath of violence, from nearly losing control, from having to choose. Back at the house, his people melted away, disappearing into the shadows as quickly and silently as they'd appeared. Gabriel led me upstairs to his suite, into the bathroom, where he turned on the shower and just stood there, staring at nothing. "Let me help," I said quietly, breaking the silence. I helped him remove the tactical gear, the weapons, the vest. Beneath it all, bruises were already forming. A graze on his ribs where a bullet had come too close. "This needs cleaning," I said, reaching for a towel. "It's fine. It's not fine. Sit down." He obeyed, sinking onto the edge of the tub. I found a first aid kit and cleaned the graze with careful efficiency, my movements precise. My hands didn't shake, but I knew that would come later, the delayed reaction to the night's events. "You're good at this," Gabriel observed, his voice flat. "I've had practice. Your parents really were operatives?" "Yes, they taught us everything. How to survive. How to disappear. How to do what's necessary." I taped a bandage over the wound, my focus intense. "How to live with the consequences of hard choices. And can you live with what you did tonight?" He met my eyes, his gaze searching. "I don't know yet. Ask me tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" He pulled me close, buried his face in my hair, his arms wrapping around me. "Tomorrow we figure out what comes next. Tonight I just need you close." I leaned into him, and we stayed like that for a long time, while water ran in the shower, steam filling the room, a silent testament to the chaos we'd survived. Outside, the lake was dark and peaceful, its surface reflecting the moonlight like a mirror. Natalie had been avenged. Victor would pay for what he'd done, but the cost was written in blood and bullets and the unsettling knowledge that I'd crossed a line tonight, a line I wasn't sure I could ever uncross. And the terrifying part was that I didn't want to go back to the person I was before. 2 weeks after Victor's capture, I stood in my sterile hotel room, staring at a plane ticket to Prague. The room felt cold and impersonal after Gabriel's lake house. All beige walls and generic art. My luggage sat packed by the door, ready for a life I wasn't sure I wanted anymore. My phone buzzed. Another unwanted intrusion. Gabriel. For the third time that morning, I let it go to voicemail. The sound of it buzzing against the nightstand was like a persistent reminder of my complicated situation. We'd been dancing around the same conversation for days, both knowing we needed to talk, but neither brave enough to start. The truth was simpler, and yet more complicated, than either of us wanted to admit. I'd fallen hard for a man who commanded an empire built on violence, a man who'd loved my sister first, a constant reminder of a life I could never fully share, a man whose world had already taken one person I loved, and I was terrified of losing myself in the process. I needed space to think, to breathe, to figure out who Lauren Cooper was when she wasn't running on adrenaline and grief, when she wasn't defined by her past or driven by revenge. The knock on the door wasn't surprising, although I tried to pretend that I wasn't expecting him. I'd known he'd come eventually, drawn to me like a moth to a flame. Gabriel stood in the hallway, dressed in casual clothes, dark jeans, a worn leather jacket, that somehow made him even more intimidating than his tailored suits. The faint scar on his chin caught the light, a permanent reminder of a life lived on the edge. He looked exhausted, haunted, as if he hadn't slept in days. "You weren't going to say goodbye," he said quietly, his voice devoid of emotion, but his eyes betrayed the hurt he was feeling. I didn't know what to say, couldn't find the words to explain the turmoil inside me. "How about the truth?" He stepped inside, closing the door behind him, the click echoing in the small room. "How about telling me you're leaving because you can't handle what we did? What I am, what this life costs. It's not that simple." "It's exactly that simple." He moved to the window, stared out at the glittering Chicago skyline, his back to me. Natalie struggled with the same thing. She wanted to love me, but hated what loving me meant. The compromises, the violence, the constant danger. She tried to prove she could handle it, and it killed her. "I'm not Natalie." "No, you're stronger, colder, more capable of surviving this world." He turned to face me, his expression intense, raw with vulnerability. "Which is exactly why I shouldn't ask you to stay, because you could. You could adapt, build a life here, become part of this. And watching you do that, watching this darkness consume someone else I love, would destroy me." The words hung in the air, heavy and charged with unspoken emotion. Asterisk someone else I love. Asterisk he'd said it casually, like it was obvious. A simple truth he could no longer deny. You don't love me? I said, needing to believe it, needing to protect myself from the pain of a love that could never be. You love what I represent. Closure with Natalie. A second chance. Is that what you think? He crossed to me, his hands framing my face, his thumbs gently caressing my cheeks. I loved Natalie, past tense. She was light and joy and everything good. But you, Lauren, you're something entirely different. What am I then? You're the first person who sees what I am, all of it, and doesn't flinch. Who understands that some darkness can't be washed away with good intentions. Who accepts your sharp edges and cold calculation. But beneath that, you're fiercely loyal, protective, willing to risk everything for the people you care about. You're everything I didn't know I needed. And I'm terrified of losing you before we even have a chance. I wanted to believe him, wanted to think we could build something real from tragedy, wanted to imagine a future filled with love instead of darkness, but reality was less forgiving, less willing to grant happy endings. Victor is in custody, I said, stepping back, creating a physical distance between us. Natalie has been avenged. The reason we came together doesn't exist anymore. So we need a new reason, he said, his voice low and intense, his eyes pleading with me to stay. We can't just be two people who found each other in the dark. Not when one of those people runs a criminal empire and the other has spent her whole life trying to escape that world. I gestured to the luggage, a silent reminder of the life I was supposed to be living. My parents fled the KGB so Natalie and I could have normal lives. How can I honor that by walking right back into the darkness they died to escape? Gabriel's expression hardened, the vulnerability fading, replaced by a familiar mask of control. Then get on that plane. Go back to Prague to your quiet life, pretending you didn't spend 2 weeks orchestrating revenge, pretending you didn't shoot someone, pretending you're not exactly like your parents, carrying darkness in your DNA. The words hit like physical blows because they were true, a brutal assessment of who I was at my core. Violence came naturally to me. The cold calculation, the strategic thinking, the ability to do what was necessary, regardless of the consequences. I was my parents' daughter, and no amount of distance would change that. What are you offering? I asked quietly, steeling myself for the answer. If I stay, what does that life look like? Complicated, dangerous at times, but I'm working on changing things, transitioning legitimate operations to Franco, creating businesses that don't require looking over our shoulders. It'll take time, but I'm serious about it, because of me, because of us, because I'm tired of this life. He stepped closer, his voice softer, more vulnerable than I'd ever heard it. Natalie wanted me to change, but I wasn't ready. With you, I want to be better. Not perfect, not innocent, but better. And if I can't do it, if I try to be with you and the weight breaks me, then I'll let you go. No guilt, no chains. But Lauren, his hand found mine, his fingers lacing through mine. Don't walk away before we even try. Don't let fear of what might happen steal what we could have. I looked at our joined hands, his scarred from years of violence, mine marked by the past 2 weeks of bloodshed and betrayal. We were both damaged, both carrying darkness, both broken in our own ways. Maybe that was why this could work. Maybe our shared darkness could become a source of strength instead of a catalyst for destruction. I need conditions, I said finally, my voice firm. If I stay, I maintain my independence, my career, my identity. I'm not becoming someone's kept woman. I wouldn't want you to. And you follow through on the transition. Franco takes over dangerous operations within 6 months, or I'm gone. Agreed. And we visit Natalie's grave together. I need to talk to her, explain this, make peace with loving the man she loved first. Gabriel's expression softened, the hard lines around his eyes relaxing. We can go today. The cemetery was quiet, the air crisp and cool, autumn leaves covering the ground in shades of copper and gold. Natalie's grave was in the newer section, her headstone simple and understated. Asterisk Natalie Cooper, beloved daughter, sister, fiancée. Gabriel stood beside me, his hand finding the small of my back, offering support without pressure. a silent acknowledgement of the pain I was feeling. "Hi, Nat," I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry I wasn't here sooner. Sorry for 3 years of silence. For letting pride keep us apart." The wind rustled through nearby trees, a soft, mournful sound. "I met him, Gabriel, the man you loved." I glanced at him, his eyes filled with a mixture of grief and hope. "You were right. He's worth the risk, worth the complications." I didn't understand that before, but I do now. "I loved her," Gabriel said, speaking to the stone, his voice thick with emotion. "But I wasn't good enough for her, wasn't ready to be what she needed. I failed her, and I'm sorry." Tears tracked down my face, blurring my vision. "I'm gonna try, Nat, to be with him. I need you to be okay with that. I need to believe you'd understand." The wind picked up, swirling the leaves around us, and somewhere a bird called, its song clear and distinct in the stillness. It felt like a sign, like permission, a silent blessing from beyond the grave. Gabriel pulled me against his side, his arm wrapping around my shoulders, a comforting weight. "She'd want you happy. She'd want both of us to find something good from all this pain." "You think so?" "I know so. Natalie was many things, but she wasn't vindictive. She loved you. That doesn't stop just because she's gone." We stood there for long minutes, lost in our own thoughts, connected by grief and hope and a shared love for a woman who was no longer with us. Finally, I placed flowers on the grave, white lilies, like the ones at her funeral, a symbol of purity and remembrance. "I'll come back," I promised, my voice stronger now. "I'll tell you how it goes. You won't be forgotten, Nat, not by me, not by him. You'll always be part of our story." As we walked back to the car, Gabriel's arm around my shoulders, I felt something shift inside me. A sense of acceptance, a willingness to let go of the past and embrace the future, whatever it might hold. The past couldn't be changed. Natalie was gone, and two people who'd found each other through tragedy were choosing to see if love could grow, even in the darkest of places. "Where to?" Gabriel asked as we reached the car, his voice gentle. I looked back at Natalie's grave one last time, then at the man beside me, his eyes filled with hope and uncertainty. "Home," I said simply. "Take me home." He understood, his grip tightening on my hand. Not my hotel, not Prague, but the lake house, the life we were choosing to build together. A life forged in grief and darkness, but illuminated by the fragile promise of love. The drive back was quiet, comfortable, filled with a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. Gabriel's hand found mine across the console, and I didn't pull away, allowing the connection to deepen. This was my choice, my risk, my leap into the unknown. And for the first time since arriving in Chicago, I felt something beyond grief and anger, something beyond the darkness that had consumed me for so long. I felt hope, fragile and frightening, but undeniably real. The lake house appeared through the trees, windows glowing warm, welcoming. Franco stood on the porch, a silent sentinel, but he smiled when he saw us, his expression softening with relief. "Welcome back, Miss Cooper," he said, his voice gruff but sincere. "Your room is ready, though I suspect you'll be needing different accommodations now." Franco, Gabriel warned, but there was no heat in his tone, only amusement. "What? I'm just saying what everyone's thinking." Franco's expression turned serious, his eyes meeting mine. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you stayed. Boss needs someone who isn't afraid to challenge him." "That's the plan," I said, meeting his gaze with a smile. Inside, the house felt different, less like a monument to Natalie and more like a place that could hold new memories, a space for us to create our own history. Her photos were still there, still honored, but they didn't dominate, they were a part of the house, not the defining feature. Gabriel had made changes, subtle but significant, creating space for me without erasing her, acknowledging the past while embracing the future. "I'll have your things moved from the hotel tomorrow," he said, leading me upstairs, his hand warm on the small of my back. "But tonight, I just want you here, want to know you're safe, that you're staying, that this is real." We reached the master suite, and he paused in the doorway, his eyes searching mine. Last chance to change your mind, to say this is too fast, too complicated, too much. I kissed him instead of answering. A slow, deep kiss that poured all my certainty, all my hope, all my love into that single moment. When we finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine, his breath warm against my skin. I'll spend the rest of my life proving you made the right decision, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Good, I whispered back, my heart overflowing, because I'm going to hold you to every promise you made today. Outside, the lake reflected the rising moon, its surface dark and peaceful, shimmering with reflected light. Tomorrow would bring challenges, complications, the hard work of building something new from broken pieces. But tonight, for the first time since Natalie's death, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged. In the darkness, finding light. In the grief, finding love. In the ending, finding a beginning. 9 months had passed since I'd made the decision to stay. 9 months of watching Gabriel slowly transform from a man who ruled through fear into someone who was actively trying to build something legitimate, something lasting. The transition wasn't easy or clean. There were setbacks and challenges along the way, but it was real, fueled by his love for me and his desire to create a better future for our family. Tonight was the culmination of everything we'd worked towards, a testament to our commitment to change. A charity gala at the Four Seasons, benefiting victims of organized crime. The irony wasn't lost on anyone, least of all me. Gabriel Donatelli, former Mafia boss, now funding programs to help people escape the life he'd once commanded. A complete turnaround. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the emerald green dress Gabriel had chosen for me. 6 months pregnant, my body had changed in ways I was still adjusting to, my curves softer, my movements more deliberate. The baby kicked, a gentle reminder that everything we'd built, everything we'd sacrificed for, had become tangible, real, impossible to walk away from. You look beautiful, Gabriel said from the doorway, his voice soft with affection. He wore a classic tuxedo that somehow managed to make him look both elegant and dangerously handsome, a potent combination that still made my heart skip a beat. But his eyes were softer now, the hard edges replaced by a warmth I cherished. Fatherhood suited him, even before our daughter had arrived. I look like I swallowed a basketball, I joked, turning to face him. You look like everything I never knew I wanted, he said, his voice husky with emotion. He crossed to me, his hands settling on my swollen belly, his touch gentle and reverent. Are you sure you're up for tonight? We can skip it if you're tired. And miss watching Franco officially take over? I shook my head, smiling. Not a chance. Tonight's event served dual purposes. A carefully orchestrated dance between public perception and private reality. Publicly, it was a charity event, a show of goodwill and a chance for Chicago's elite to pat themselves on the back. Privately, it marked Gabriel's complete and irrevocable exit from the Donatelli organization. Franco would officially assume control of all remaining operations, both legitimate and otherwise, while Gabriel would focus solely on the legal businesses we'd been building, creating a future free from violence and bloodshed. The ballroom glittered with Chicago's elite, a sea of expensive gowns and perfectly coiffed hair. Politicians, businessmen, socialites, all people who'd once feared Gabriel Donatelli, now sipped champagne beside him, pretending the past didn't exist. Money had a way of buying amnesia, of smoothing over even the darkest of sins. Franco approached, looking deeply uncomfortable in his ill-fitting tuxedo, his usual swagger replaced by a nervous fidgeting. Boss, everything's ready. Contracts are signed, transfers are complete. As of midnight, it's all mine. Not boss anymore, Gabriel corrected gently, his voice devoid of any hint of ego. Just Gabriel. You're the one they answer to now. Franco's expression was complicated, a mixture of pride and apprehension swirling in his eyes. You sure about this? Walking away completely? I'm building something better. For her, for our daughter, Gabriel said, his hand finding mine and squeezing gently. The old life is yours now, Franco. Make it whatever you want it to be. I'll make you proud, Franco said, his voice thick with emotion. You already have, Gabriel replied, his eyes conveying all the pride and affection he felt for his friend. I excused myself to use the restroom, navigating through the crowded ballroom with the gracelessness of late pregnancy. The hallway was quieter, a welcome respite from the noise and forced smiles, and I took a moment to breathe deeply, pressing a hand to my lower back. That's when I noticed him, standing near the service entrance, watching the ballroom with an intense focus that sent a shiver down my spine. He was a man in his mid-30s, dressed in a dark, nondescript suit, the kind that blended seamlessly into the background. But something about his posture was wrong. Too rigid, too alert, like a predator waiting for its prey. His hand kept drifting to his jacket, a telltale sign, and I recognized the gesture immediately. He was armed. My training kicked in despite the months I'd spent away from that world, the instincts ingrained in me since childhood resurfacing without conscious thought. I observed without seeming to, noting every detail. The slight bulge under his jacket, the way he tracked Gabriel's movements with unwavering precision, the faint Albanian accent I caught when he spoke into a cell phone, his voice low and hurried. Victor's cousin. It had to be. Silvio had warned us there were relatives who might seek revenge, Albanian hard cases who wouldn't rest until they'd settled the score, but we thought we'd neutralized the threat, believed we'd accounted for every possible contingency. We'd been wrong. I moved quickly, my heart pounding in my chest, circling back towards the ballroom, my mind racing. I found Franco first, pulling him aside, away from the prying ears of Chicago's elite. Threat, service entrance. Albanian, armed, watching Gabriel. Franco's expression hardened instantly, all traces of nervousness disappearing, replaced by the cold, calculating gaze of a seasoned enforcer. Get to Gabriel now. Don't let him out of your sight. I pushed through the crowd, my pregnancy slowing me down more than I wanted. Gabriel was near the stage, deep in conversation with a city council member, completely unaware of the danger that was lurking. The lights dimmed, signaling the start of the scheduled presentation. Perfect cover for an attack. I finally reached Gabriel and grabbed his arm. We need to move now. Lauren, what? Albanian. Service entrance. He's here for you. Gabriel's transformation was instantaneous. The civilized businessman vanished, replaced by the predator I knew he could be. His hand found the small of my back, guiding me urgently toward an exit. But it was too late. The man emerged from the service entrance, weapon already raised. Everything happened in a blur of seconds. Franco appeared out of nowhere, tackling the Albanian just before he could fire. They crashed to the ground with a thud, and the crowd erupted in screams. Gabriel shielded me with his body, backing us quickly toward cover. More security personnel poured in. Gabriel's former men, still loyal and protective. The Albanian was subdued and dragged away, but the damage was done. The illusion of safety, of normalcy, shattered like glass. Gabriel held me tightly, his hands frantically checking for injuries. Are you hurt? Is the baby okay? We're fine. I'm fine. But my hands were shaking uncontrollably now, the adrenaline finally catching up. How did he get in? Your security was focused on external threats. He came in as part of the catering staff. Gabriel's jaw clenched, his face hardening. This is my fault. I should have been more careful. This is Victor's cousin's fault. And it's over now. I pressed his hand to my belly where our daughter kicked. We're alive. We're together. That's all that matters. Police arrived, asking the same questions we'd answered 100 times before. Former associates vouched for Gabriel's reformed status. The Albanian was taken into custody, and slowly, painstakingly, the chaos subsided. In the aftermath, we stood on the hotel balcony, overlooking the lake. The same lake we'd stared at from Gabriel's house months ago. Dark and peaceful and indifferent to the turmoil we had just faced. Maybe Franco should handle everything, Gabriel said quietly, his voice laced with doubt. Maybe I'm just fooling myself, thinking I can build something clean from all this. You already are building it one foundation at a time. I leaned into him, offering comfort and reassurance. Tonight was one man's vendetta. Tomorrow is a foundation helping abuse survivors. A scholarship program. Legitimate businesses employing people who need second chances. That's your legacy now. Our legacy. His hand covered mine on my belly. Her legacy. Speaking of which, we need to finalize her name. I thought we agreed. Natalie? I'd suggested it weeks ago, and Gabriel had cried not from grief this time, but from something gentler, a profound sense of gratitude that I wanted to honor my sister in this way. Natalie Cooper Donatelli? I said, testing it out, letting the sound of it wash over me. Our daughter, carrying both our pasts into a better future. She'll be extraordinary, just like her mother. 3 weeks later, I sat in the same hospital where I'd once translated for victims of violence, now giving birth to hope made flesh. Gabriel held my hand through every contraction, every push, every moment of pain that led to something beautiful and miraculous. When they placed our daughter in my arms, tiny and perfect in ours, I looked at Gabriel and saw tears streaming down his face. "She has your eyes," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Blue like the lake, and your stubborn chin." I traced the delicate line of her jaw. "Natalie, meet your father, the man who loved your namesake and chose to become better." "Meet your mother," Gabriel added, kissing my forehead. "The woman who saved me when I didn't even know I needed saving." Later, when the visitors had gone and the room was finally quiet, Gabriel pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. Natalie's grave, now marked with fresh flowers and a small plaque. "Aunt Natalie," it read, "forever loved, never forgotten." "I went this morning," he explained, his voice hushed. "Told her about the baby, about you, about how we're trying to build something good from all the pain." "What did she say?" "Nothing. Everything." The wind blew, and it felt like permission, like she was telling us to stop looking back and start looking forward. I held our daughter closer, breathing in her newborn scent. Forward, then, toward whatever comes next. Together, always outside. The sun rose over Chicago, painting the sky in vibrant shades of gold and rose. A new day, a new beginning, a new life built from darkness and grief and the stubborn, unwavering choice to try. Natalie Cooper Donatelli slept peacefully in my arms, unaware that she was the bridge between past and future. The living proof that sometimes the most broken people could create something whole. That love could grow even in the darkest soil and bloom into something extraordinary. And somewhere I like to think my sister smiled.